Hi guys, a quick note before we actually start this episode. This was initially planned to be our episode 100 and does get referenced a few times that it is, until we actually managed to snare Pete in between the Montreal gigs and the Paris gig. So we thought, since we gave Rothers episode 50, it would be kind of a nice thing to do for Pete to give him episode 100. So, can we now present episode 101, which is Misplaced Childhood?
Hello,
Hello.
and welcome
To our 101st episode
of Planet Marzipan.
the Fish and Marillion podcast. I'm Mezza, and here's my mate.
Craig Houston.
Hello, and welcome to Planet Marzipan. I'm Mezza. I'm here with my good friend.
Craig, for the 100th time.
Ooh,
Well,
yes.
100th one if you count the pilot, but we don't really go that way.
Episode 100. We just want to thank our listeners for allowing us to get this far. And thanks to the lawyers for not catching up with us, which is brilliant, isn't it?
And thanks for the therapists for
Yeah.
not charging too much.
We were kicking around ideas for our 100th episode. Because the band are all busy with the weekends, we haven't got an interview for you. Instead, we got some folks who were around when we went back to our first episode where Craig and I covered Misplaced Childhood for about 30 minutes. And we thought we'd take a deeper look at Misplaced Childhood for its 40th anniversary. But we get some folks on, because Craig's so young and wasn't there at the time, we get some hardened folks on who were there at the time to talk about it. So we welcome back to the podcast Grae Tennick.
Evening.
Hello, sir. And Mark Owens.
Good evening, everybody.
And we have somebody new on the podcast. We welcome Richard Broadley.
Good evening, and thanks for having me.
Hi, Richard. Welcome. And we welcome back to the podcast. He's been on once before, but from Marquee Square Heroes, Mark Colton.
Hi, guys. Good to be back.
Hello. Welcome back. So how does that sound? We talk about Misplaced. It's quite a feat, isn't it? It's one of the key albums of the career, obviously.
It is, but the first thing we should do is
Ask how old you were.
Richard's first episode. So
It is. I'm coming on to that, but we
get to tell his story.
yeah. Well, Mark kind of told us his story about how he got into the band when he was on before.
Yeah.
But Richard, as Craig says, we've not had you on our podcast before, so we ask you the golden question: how did you first hear about Marillion and Fish?
Right, how long have I got?
As long as you want. Craig will let you tell you. No.
Okay. So I'm probably a little bit different from most people in that I wasn't a fan of prog rock or anything like that beforehand. My musical journey started when someone took me to see the film Grease in 1977 or 76, whenever it came out. And instantly I just fell in love with music, just having seen that film. So for a couple of years, I was a teddy boy. And then I sort of progressed into being a rockabilly. Really loved rockabilly, the Stray Cats and all that sort of stuff. And then in the early 80s, I sort of moved on from that to sort of like Echo and the Bunnymen and The Cure and U2 and groups like that. So I really had no inkling of groups like Marillion or Genesis or any of those sort of what we'd call prog groups now. And I remember, so I was vaguely aware of Script, the singles and things and stuff that came up for Ghazi, Punch and Judy and stuff like that, but didn't really sort of get into my consciousness. I think when you're that sort of age, you tend to be a little bit sort of narrow-minded about what sort of music you like. And I don't like any of that. I just like my rock music. Obviously, when Kaylee came out as a single, I remember quite liking it. But it was when we had a guy from head office came down to the place I worked at, and he sort of heard me saying, "Yeah, I quite like that Kaylee. It's not my type of music, but I quite like it." And he said, "Right, well, you need to listen to the album. You need to listen to Misplaced Childhood." And I said, no, I don't need to. I don't need to do that. And he was very, very persuasive, and he kept chipping away at me. And And then eventually I sort of capitulated and said, all right, I'll listen to it. And it was a revelation. Up till that point, music I liked had been sort of pogo music and jumping about. And it was the first time I'd ever listened to music that sort of had an emotional punch, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And it sounds an awful cliche, but actually that moment sort of changed my life in a way, and certainly changed my taste in music. So from that day on, my musical taste has almost sort of diverged in two directions. I still love all the sort of U2 and Echo and the Bunnymen, etc. But I've also got very much into prog. So not most people got Genesis and then Genesis to Marillion. I discovered all the Genesis and Pink Floyd and etc. after getting into Marillion.
Okay.
So yeah, a little bit different. But
that's quite unique in that angle. Yeah. And when was the first time you saw them live?
First time I saw them live was on the Misplaced tour. So from getting into the album, I was just absolutely obsessed. I just had to do everything. I had to buy all the albums and singles, and I got to see them live at the NEC 19th of December. I think it was 19th, or was it 21st of December, 1985. So
brilliant.
That was it. Yeah.
What a gig to come in on. That's fantastic.
I know.
Can I just tell Richard he's in a safe space, because my first gig was Shawdy Waddy.
Are we going down that road, are we? Your first gigs?
My first gig was Crazy Cavern and the Rhythm Rockers in Flitwick Town Hall in 1977. So how about that?
Mine was Black Sabbath being supported by Van Halen.
Yeah, all right, show off.
Oh.
That's because Mark.
That's quite cool. Mark? Mr. O?
Milton Keynes Bowl.
Oh, get away.
82. Genesis, 6 of the best. That was my first ever gig.
Man, he always...
I don't always. I got no option. That's the truth.
He loves to remind me that I wasn't at that gig.
Thing is, though, with me though, I'm exactly the same as Grae. What do you?
Nothing wrong with it, surely.
There's something going on here. What's going on?
The Moon of Love is a classic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean they are absolutely brilliant live band.
Oh, they were amazing live, even for.
Well, they still are. They still are. I've played on the same bill as them relatively recently. Yeah.
You still had two drummers like Adam and the Ants did in the early days.
No, my only problem with Shawty Waddy is every time I hear somebody say, and I'm really apologise for this in advance, I hear Jimmy Savile in my head going, "Waddy, Waddy."
This is a good start, gents.
Right.
Certainly misplaced.
Yeah. Well, my first gig was a Stranglers at Bridge Bar Pavilion in 1979. So none of this Shawty Waddy lark. Although that was the first album I bought, Shawty Waddy's Greatest Hits. So there you go.
Classic.
Okay, shall we get back to the task in hand?
You mean we're not talking about Shawty Waddy all night?
We can. It's an alternate podcast, I think, right? But we can do that. I don't know what we call that.
That's an idea for Planet Music.
Planet Waddy.
Waddy. Yeah.
1984. Marillion. Farewell to 84 tour. Anybody catch any of those dates?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Cardiff Uni, where I was last night, funnily enough, same room.
Yeah.
Hammersmith Odeon, the gig that was recorded where he says does all the guff about side 1 and side 2 and singing the lyrics about we could mow the lawn on Sundays and things like that.
Yeah, I had that bootleg.
Yeah.
These are the gigs where the Cardiacs supported, weren't they?
Well, people tell me this, but I don't remember them at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
which surprises me.
Maybe they didn't support in London, but I mean, I saw them in Manchester and they got such a tough time. Fish came out after 3 songs and asked the audience to calm down. Did you ever see the Cardiacs, Mark?
Yeah.
So you know their shtick with the sort of dressing as school kids and him sort of hitting them around the head. They were doing all that with this really staccato music, and it wasn't really going down well with the Marillion audience.
Well, I mean, I'd recognise them from the music, but when people started saying they absolutely tanked on the tour, that really does surprise me, because I'd have thought I'd have remembered that. And I mean, I was living in Hammersmith, I was working in Hammersmith. There's no way I was late. And
no.
So yeah, I don't know, just really odd. Just doesn't resonate with me at all. But I mean, maybe I should check and see that they did do it. I'm sure they probably did.
Well, we'll have a look while we're talking, and I'll have a
Yeah,
So I certainly remember that, and Mark and I have talked about it before. I talked about it on the first podcast. It's one of my abiding memories of the gig because it was quite a tense atmosphere in the audience while all this was going on.
right.
And then the Fish came out and said this, and then the next track they played was a slightly more melodic and less angular thing that went down better with the crowd. And you thought, oh, maybe it's going to calm down again. But then they went back to the stuff they were playing before, and it really didn't go well, which is a shame because they're a much revered band, aren't they, Cardiacs?
Yeah, but very much so. But yeah, I can remember seeing JD support them on one occasion. I can't remember what tour that was on.
JD supported them on the second leg of this tour.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely there because it was unusual for me because I was in the stalls the first night they did because I normally used to go front row of the balcony, and it was right at the front in the stalls, and I remember the show vividly, and I remember the intro, and I do genuinely remember the opening riff to Kaylee and thinking, "Oh, this is cool." I thought the lyrics were shite. Oh, not very good.
Well, they were made up, weren't they? He was on the tour. He was still busting through.
Yeah, fair play to him. And a lot of it was there, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah,
when you listen to the bootleg.
I just remember being so excited about the new music,
new album,
coming up with, and you just felt like our band were about to take the next step. You know, it was that good.
Yeah,
but
totally
different to what had come before.
See, I didn't get any of this because I was blissfully unaware of them still. I got them like a crash and a bang in 1985. And
yeah, you got the finished article, Richard.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, but that's good. You know, it's.
Well, I think the bit, one of the my abiding memories was it felt a lot softer than what we'd been through with Script and especially with Fugazi, which was just incredible.
Spiky album.
Yeah, I mean, we had Guy Beckett on recently, and Guy was saying the same thing. He felt that Misplaced was a disappointment to him because he really liked the energy of the first two albums.
I mean, to me, it had a lot of energy. There was a bit live, and it's definitely there because I've heard it on the bootleg. And there's a piece of music and some lyrics, and basically what he's saying is it's another misplaced childhood, another lost weekend, and it's about it's at that sort of point just after Lavender, which didn't make the album. And I remember at the time thinking, wow, this is amazingly powerful. I thought the whole piece was.
So I did have the bootleg. I didn't see the gigs, but is that Lost Weekend piece? Is that the same bit that's made it to the demos?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
I'd almost go as far as say that was probably the bit that really got me that night. I mean, Kaylee just had hit single written all over it. The riff, you know, coming in after Pseudo Silk Kimono, it was probably more typical of what they were doing, I guess, maybe at the time.
Yeah.
And then you've got this really nice riff, which I'm sure you probably know this, but it's the original version of She Chameleon, the riff at the end of it, played the other way around.
No, we didn't know that. Not being a musician, it doesn't.
Oh, I'm not a musician. I only know because Robin, the guitarist in Marquee Square Heroes, told me.
Right. Okay. Okay. Mark, what did you think of that gig and the first side of Misplaced when you heard it?
I can remember there being something special that they were doing, and I can't remember. I'm not heard the bootleg. I can't remember that far back for the changes and the differences in the lyrics. But all I can remember is like this is not like the last two albums where you had just strict singles. This wasn't the full on thing, but it just flowed, pretty much flowed from one to the other, and it was this as if like. In their heads and in their writing, their production values had just got to the next level. I can remember parts of the gig, Forgotten Sons, because I was in a British combat jacket all night. That's when I could pogo all night and walk out there looking like I've been swimming in a river. But yeah, Cardiac's thing you were on about, it happened at Cardiff.
Yeah.
The same thing happened to Cardiff, but unfortunately, I think there was a girl on sax. They had those glasses.
Yeah, yeah.
They reminded me of some of them look a bit like Woody Allen with these glasses on. And the girl, somebody threw something which I thought was a can, and it hit her right on the bridge of the nose, right by the glasses, and it did mark her. And he came down and he tore hell into that audience, absolute hell.
Yeah.
Obviously this stuff didn't go down well, but nobody'd ever think of doing that these days. You don't do it. There's loads of respect for whatever support bands play with Marillion, but it was a hell of a night. I'd taken two friends that had only heard of bits and pieces of Marillion. I mean, I was only, so I think, I was 16. Hang on, was that November? It was a November gig.
November 84.
I was 16 and a half, something like that. With more energy than I'd ever had now. It was just electric. The whole thing was electric, and we were getting something brand new, as a demo, as a teaser or something. And I thought as well that they're going up. They're going up.
Okay. Well, look, that's the sort of precursor to the album.
Mm-hmm.
We always ask Craig how old he was when the albums came out. So, how old were you when Misplaced Childhood came out, Craig?
I was 12, not quite 13.
So why weren't you at the gigs?
I was into other things at the time.
All right. Well, the other thing that we always do now is we read the Wikipedia entry. So I'm going to read the Wikipedia.
But you've already done that in the first episode. So
I'm doing it
has
again.
it changed? Has it changed since?
I've updated it.
He's edited it himself.
Misplaced Childhood is the third studio album by the British neo-prog band Marillion, released in 1985. It's a concept album loosely based on the childhood of Marillion's lead singer Fish, who was inspired by a brief incident that occurred while he was under the influence of LSD. The album was recorded during the spring of 1985 at Hansa Ton Studio in Berlin and produced by Chris Kimsey, who had previously worked with the Rolling Stones. Misplaced Childhood is the group's most commercially successful album, peaking immediately at number 1 in the UK charts and spending a total of 41 weeks on the chart. It ultimately gained platinum status, and it features Marillion's two most successful singles, the guitar-led rock ballad Kaylee, which reached number 2, and the piano-led Lavender, which peaked at number 5. So Kaylee was the first single, obviously, which came out in the May before the album was released in June. And
it did something that Marillion singles don't normally do, and it's called climbing.
Yeah, it went up in the charts. Yeah.
No, number 2, I believe, isn't it? Number 2.
Yeah, it eventually got to number 2, yeah.
Stopped by the charity record, didn't it?
Yeah. And what were your thoughts when you first heard the single?
I really liked it. It was something like that, different from what I was normally listening to, but it just sort of seemed to, the guitar playing, I think, was what did it, and just the melody of it. I just really enjoyed it, and it sort of made me stop and listen and think, "Oh, this is good."
Yeah,
it's quite interesting as well because the guitar solo comes in very early.
Does
really?
Yeah,
and it is such a melodic. I mean, the solo every time Rob plays it. When we do, because we do at the moment, we're doing a part of the first side of Misplaced before we do the whole thing, and it's hairs on the back of your neck time, I think, on that guitar solo. And he was playing it pretty much live, pretty straight as it was recorded as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think as a single, it felt like, well, there were two things really. There was one for me where this band I've been boring everybody about for years are about to go stratospheric. And I can't remember if it's in a book or whether it's a story Fish tells, but there's a thing about, I remember seeing it on Wogan, where he sort of that bit where he looks at the camera at the end. And I remember thinking at the time, that I was really, it sounds stupid, but sort of almost parental pride.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah.
That here goes this, I mean, I've been seeing them guys since the Marquee, and they moved so dramatically forward, and but there was also a little bit of, oh dear, I'm losing something that's precious to me.
I think for me it was the nice thing about the single was it let me talk to my friends who were normal about the music that I liked, which wasn't. Do you know what I mean? Because suddenly it was a commercial thing that everybody liked and everybody was talking about. And I'm like, see all that weird shit I used to listen to, and you used to say, what the hell is that? That's that band. They are that good.
See, it was the opposite for me because all my friends were into things that were totally different. So it was a secret liking of mine. I had to keep it quiet.
See, I was working in this record shop at the time, and I have two very vivid memories. One is going down and getting the single. The stock room was downstairs, bringing it up and putting it on, and just being. I mean, at that point, every single, every album they put out was just. A friend of mine refers to them as trouser tenting moments, and and the excitement in going upstairs with the single, and the girl I was going out with at the time, she worked there, and we put it on, and it was just like, wow. But I do remember saying to her at the time, we're going to know when we're getting old because we'll be interviewing people called Kaylee for jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I thought it was a great single. I thought the other side of the single was interesting as well.
Well, I was about to say Lady Nina was different again, but really exciting,
Yeah.
Drum machines on a Marillion record,
Yeah, it was like, what's that all about?
Yeah, totally new. But yeah, it was,
yeah,
as you say, having your band on Wogan, just you felt validated in a way, didn't you? I didn't at that point. I don't think I felt that I was losing them because they'd not played the big arena gigs that were coming. They were about to announce all that. But that would be the point where I would start to think, well, okay, I used to go and see them at Sheffield City Hall, but now we're in the NEC and
now
we're in Wembley Arena. But
the thing is if you look at the meteoric rise up to Misplaced Childhood, it was really quick because from Market Square Heroes through to the stuff from Script, the stuff from Fugazi, and the stuff into Misplaced, you're only talking like 3 years, really.
Yeah.
And if you think about that now, if you think back now, that's just to where if you think of where the band are now, that's just an hour before it's dark in time scale.
Well, yeah, but the band
it's ridiculous.
They only put one album out every 5 or 6 years now, don't they? So
yeah,
not a fair comparison, is it?
Yeah,
there wasn't a contractual obligation now, is there? So it will do this.
True.
But you're going from 83, 84, 85 was bam, bam, bam. It was such a fast turnaround.
One of the things that always
massive growth.
4 albums because we had Reel to Reel as well.
Yeah. One of the things that always astounds me is that the anniversaries of all the albums and Fish's first gig all seem to fall at the same time.
Yeah, it's all close together.
It is, and it's like, were the release dates planned or based around that? I don't know, but yeah, it was all. But like you say, it just went so quickly.
But it's funny how Misplaced was their make or break album because they'd spent so much money with Fugazi, and but the growth was big, and they had a decent fan base, and they were selling out theaters up and down the country, but they still weren't making enough money for AMI, and this just turbocharged it.
Yeah, all these old ladies. I was in St. David's Hall for the Misplaced Childhood gig, and I'm looking down from up in the gods because all these old ladies are sat on the front row. And I'm like,
what's going on?
And I'm thinking, oh, wait till he gets to Incubus or something like that. They'll be walking out.
I mean, EMI milked it as well. So because if you think about the singles as well, it wasn't just, it was the 7-inch, the 12-inch, the picture disc that, they did make the most out of it.
Yeah, I mean, the EMI were locked into that sort of Iron Maiden style management then. The images and the T-shirts, the Bravado shirts, all of that was all wrapped up together, wasn't it?
I think one of them.
Yeah.
It's like...
I think it was all the record labels, to be honest. I mean, you had so many different 12-inch mixes for, depending on the genre.
Oh, yeah.
You think of the Frankie Goes to Hollywood stuff.
Yeah.
The amount of different mixes that used to come out for these things. But yeah, it was. I mean, they were clever, and they wanted the sales to get it up the chart quick. But then that's the phenomena that we touched on earlier when somebody said, the single went up because a bit like Iron Maiden. Or as the old lady said to me one day in Hammersmith, "Have you got that new record by one Ron Maiden for my grandson?" you know, the singles would go in quite high and then drop the next week.
Yeah.
That was normally what happened because the fans went in and we would buy every format that we could. And
Yeah, but not in this case. But yeah, it was a great advert for the album, wasn't it?
oh, it's perfect. Yeah. I mean, I was always think it was quite funny if the people that were buying the album at the time were not typical Marillion album buyers.
No.
And you know, you think, I wonder what they made of Pseudo Silk Kimono. And then when he starts going on about spiders wandering aimlessly,
you have to wonder, don't you?
What
people who bought it on the off chance, oh, do you like that, Kaylee?
Yeah.
That's something that Lucy touched on a while ago, wasn't it? When we were talking to her about it, where it was what you could class as a coffee table book album, where people have it around. You know, they're buying it because it's popular, but they're not buying it necessarily because they really want it or want to be into
conversation piece rather than
yeah. We'll come on to the artwork shortly, but I mean, we've touched upon Pseudo Silk Kimono, but what an incredible opener that was, you know, a really real scene setter and a chance for Fish to be verbose from the off, isn't it, really?
Oh, yes.
Not that he needed much encouragement.
No, he didn't, did he, really? But, you know...
but there's definitely a change in his lyrics on Misplaced. It's the change towards the more... less flowery and more direct. It's still got the flowery aspects, but he's kind of getting away from the sixth form poetry a bit.
He's taking the edge off things as well, I think, for that album.
And he's better for it, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful opening. Absolutely beautiful.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, it is.
Atmospheric. Just super.
And obviously leads us into Kaylee, which we've discussed, but then from there we go straight through into Lavender, which on first listening was it too nursery rhyme like?
It's a polite way of saying shit.
I actually quite like it, especially when they do Kaylee and Lavender and it's all into one.
Yeah, when he goes into Blue Angel, yeah, absolutely.
But I think on the album it really works. But I think if you told me when the album came out and I heard it that it was going to be the single, I'd have laughed at you, because putting out a nursery rhyme as a single, like, no, it's not going to happen. And then 3 months later, it comes. It's like, oh right, okay. But it was a good choice for a single because it kept the people that had bought Kaylee in the buy-in cycle, because it was the same kind of thing.
Yeah, it didn't alienate the people who came on board with.
Yeah, exactly. That was it.
You know, yeah.
Lavender was released in August, so there's a bit of a gap. You know, you've got Kaylee in May, the album in June, and then a slight gap till end of August for Lavender.
I think they held this. I think they held the thing. I think they probably held Lavender back because Kaylee was doing so well and they didn't want to tread on its toes too much.
Well, they had to record the extended bits for Lavender, didn't they? In the meantime, but Mark, sorry, you were going to say something there, mate.
I just have a real love-hate relationship with Lavender. I do struggle.
It didn't sound like it. Just sounded like a hate relationship.
I really struggle with it. Yeah.
You don't cover Lavender then, Mark?
Sorry, I don't.
You don't cover Lavender?
Yeah, we do. We do it as part of.
Just go from Kaylee into Blue Angel.
Yeah.
I
go.
That's the Lou when they play Lavender. Let us sing it. That's the.
Yeah. But I genuinely is a love-hate relationship with it. You know, there's a part of me that really gets it and gets why it's so popular. There's another part of it that thinks the lyrics are very trite.
But isn't that why it's popular? Because it takes people back to that childhood memory thing, which is what it was all about.
Yeah, but more than likely. I mean, there are some very clever lyrics in it, because, you know, when he's going on about walking in the park, you know, and all that sort of stuff, and it's probably something that most people can relate with or think they can relate with, especially, you know, the ages that we all were, and we were all playing, you know, to quote Mr. Dick, Love's Young Dream and all this sort of thing. And it was how we anticipated these things being. But I have struggled with it for a long time. I probably got a better appreciation of it now that we perform it, or now that I perform it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny old song.
It's also got a B-side, which is the only Marillion song I've ever performed live in a band.
Is it? Well, yeah, I was going to say, surely Freaks rescued that for you, Mark, didn't it?
Yeah, although that is incredibly difficult to sing.
Oh,
yes. Great song, though. Great track.
Yeah, and
amazing.
Yeah, and it is. You think it'd be interesting to know, because obviously they were constrained by the length of vinyl, whether there were, especially with Lady Nina, because there is a bit for me where Lady Nina could follow on from the Blue Angel bit, when he's been going on about 200 francs for Sanctuary, and she
it thematically links, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you think, I've often wondered, although I've never spoken to anybody about it, actually. Sounds like you're my therapists, but would there have been a place for it in a CD version if CD had been the optimum, and Freaks as well, and one of the things for me with Freaks is if I ever go back somewhere where I've lived, because I've managed to move around the country quite a lot, I always feel, the bit where he's going, do you ever feel a stranger going back into your hometown? And yeah, I do. It looks the same, it feels the same, but it ain't the same.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of his gifts, is that even when he's at his most verbal, maybe apart from the rain auditions at my window bit, because most blokes would sing "It's raining outside" and I've got a bellyache. But he can take you places with the words.
Yeah, I think there's certainly, looking at this side one, the more we're talking about it now, I think for me the shift is he's talking about love and emotion more on this record than he did previously.
In a more transparent way as well.
Yeah, in a more relatable way, maybe for a bigger audience.
It was all about consequence beforehand, wasn't it? Consequence or anger.
Yeah.
Well, and how awfully he'd been treated.
Yeah.
By everybody.
No one understands me.
Yeah.
A misplaced reaction and all that. Yeah.
One thing for me is that obviously, you look at the track listing. This album I've listened to more than any other album, I think, hundreds of times probably. And I always just think of it as what an album, or one long song. It almost sort of, when you look at all the different titles, I didn't really do much in my head. That for me the whole album is just one thing. And in fact, he did, when he was doing the Misplaced tour, or certainly the gig I went to, he said, well, we've got one more record to play. And when everyone groaned, and he said, oh, it's called Misplaced Childhood. And,
yeah.
So yeah,
I'm absolutely with you. I played it today and I sat there and I thought, what the hell can we say about it? It just flies by. There's, there's 40 minutes later, it's done. And you
was listening to it the last couple of days, and I'm thinking, this album's shorter than I thought it was. It just goes, and you think it's gone.
By.
Yeah.
It's interesting with whilst we've been rehearsing it, because the musicians will say, okay, we're going to do, I know Blue Angel, but I'll just use that as an example. So we're going to go from Blue Angel, and I go, well, what bit's that?
Well, I have to be honest, I'm cheating. I've got sections on here, because like you guys, I can't remember what they are. But even in the documentary, Fish doesn't know what the sections are.
Yeah. I mean, I look at it and I go, oh, there's some really great ideas for song titles there and stuff. But yeah, I still don't know which one's which.
Yeah. I mean, from Lavender we go into Bittersweet, which is one of the centerpieces of certainly of side one, if not the whole album for me.
I think Bittersweet's quite special, because you've got
I'm
the
just
nice
gonna get the lyrics up.
Yeah, you've got the nice intro through Pseudo Silk Kimono. Then you've got the singles with Blue Angel sort of transition, but then you get really the first big prog bit of the album.
Yeah.
It's the bit that goes, right, Marillion.
Right, this is it now. Here we are. Yeah.
And it's so well done. And again, I think somebody mentioned it. I think it was Craig. The production values changed. The way it's done compared to at the time I didn't think about it. Script, Fugazi, they were brilliant albums. Well, nowadays you look back and you can see the step changes in the albums and the production values and the way they did things, and even their own writing. So when you get to that Bittersweet, all of a sudden it's like, wow, this is going elsewhere. It's something different.
It is as well, but if you even compare it to modern Marillion, it's very, very complex, but it's not multi-layered. It's a lot more straightforward.
Yeah.
You know, there's not like overdubs on top of overdubs on top of overdubs. There's not like extra musical bit. It's very straightforward, but sounds so full.
So I think Mark will probably agree with me. That's probably more to do with production restrictions at the time, because now Marillion can do all their overdubs and they can do their building of their music, and they can do that live because Mark's got the ability to trigger samples and Ian can trigger things from his kit and all that kind of stuff. Whereas beforehand, it was the 5 guys playing on the stage with very little ability to do other stuff. So although you had all these ideas in the studio, if you wanted to be able to play it live and reproduce it, you had to limit yourself. So that's perhaps one of the
growth. It's the growth in their ability as a band, isn't it? As they've gone through all
and the technology to let them do it as well.
Yeah,
I think there's probably.
Sorry, you go on. You go.
I was just going to say, I think there was probably a thing at the time, a view that you played what you could play live.
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than, as a recording artist outside of Marquee Square Heroes, that was the thing. Whereas now the thing is, you make it sound as good as possible, and then you worry about learning how to play it live.
Yeah.
But I think, and it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? I think it's difficult for me to say something without sounding like I'm criticising the current lineup.
No, go for it.
No, I better not. It's more organic to me. The misplaced stuff. It sounds to me. I'm going to say something which might upset some of you on here. I find their stuff now just sounds to me like jamming without any quality control, and that's just my view. But I think on that, having an A&R man, and even though there were lots of noises about we don't like EMI and this is what we're going to do and all the other stuff, I think it probably helped them. But I think like you say, this piece is, and it's fantastic fun to sing, the whole piece, because.
But do you do the phone with a Scottish accent?
Apparently not. No, thankfully. But you can be. It's aggressive, but not in a ranty, shouty way.
Do you not think that particularly side 1 benefits from them doing a Floyd and testing it on the road?
Definitely.
They rejigged the sequence of side 1 based on the reactions they were getting on the Farewell to 84 tour. And I take your point about the current lineup. I don't agree with it entirely, but some of the transitions aren't as smooth nowadays. And we've commented on that before. Certainly when we talked about Fear, we talked about some of the transitions within songs not being the smoothest. But this is the opposite of that. I think it's seamless. You don't notice the transitions.
But I think I agree a bit with what Mark said. I think when you're with a major label, or whether you're with a label, it's great to have the kind of freedom that they've got. But it's also good if you're with another label where you've got a slightly different perspective and you've got somebody who's got a more constructive point of view, which you might, whether you take notice of what they say or whether you don't.
It's an external point of view.
Yeah, they're cutting for you, aren't they?
I mean, it could easily have been the producer. When it's come to, although it depends on when he gets involved in the process.
Well, Kimsey met them at Barwell Court, so he was there when they were writing.
Yeah, and sometimes you do need, even if it's somebody internally in the band. I mean, I don't know if you guys know, I play in a band called Credo, and it's been 14 years since our last album.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is we try and do everything democratically, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Okay. You could. Right. Sorry. Other musician in the conversation. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. And you do need someone to say this ain't working. Rather than just playing the same a minute of music for 4 hours and then going home because you still haven't sorted it out.
And I think you've hit the nail on the head in saying it's having that A&R man, that record company man, because if you think about it, even Chris Kimsey was employed by the record label, not by the band.
Mm.
So it's a very different dynamic. You know, he has a job to do, and that job is to get the best out of the band, not to do what the band want.
Yeah. I think the other thing is they were gigging so ferociously and had been over such a long period of time.
Yeah.
I mean, I work on when people talk about rehearsing, I always think actually the reason you rehearse is to get out of the mistakes you make when you're playing live, because you actually get to a point where you trust each other, and it often just goes where it goes, especially when you're writing. And I think that, you know, it probably benefits from the fact that they had been on the road pretty much non-stop. I mean, they complain about it and they blame the split of the band on it and all the other stuff. But I think in terms of the way the album flows, and that first side just does flow like one song.
Yeah. Well, they recorded it that way as well.
Yeah.
Going back to the documentary, there's four 15-minute or 4 12-minute tapes, I think it is. They recorded it in chunks like that.
And that's why they had to re-record the extra bits for the singles, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Because the segues didn't exist. It was they had to do extra bits on top.
And the funny thing is, the next track up, Heart of Lothian's been one of those, not exactly a millstone round the neck. It's a bit of a thing where a lot of people get their perception of who they are as a band from, you know, a Scottish heavy metal band, a band from Scotland and stuff.
And your problem is?
It's a great song. It's absolutely, I mean, come on, you know fine well, as soon as either Fish played it live or Marillion played it live as part of a set, it always goes down like it's absolute storm. You know, spoiler alert, at these weekends, you know, they're doing Kaylee Lavender with Blue Angel into Heart of Lothian, and it's going down brilliantly.
My wife's favourite Marillion song. She's from Edinburgh, obviously, and it's her favourite Marillion song. And see, whenever we've been to see Fish or Marillion, they've played it, she just goes mental. You know, because it is a song about home. And I think there was a lot of Scottish fans, and because of Fish, because of where he came, there was a lot of Scottish fans at the time, and it meant a lot to have that song sung. It meant a lot to even to have it released. It meant a lot to have that because it was something personal for them.
Yeah.
I
mean, we were there. You know, 3 of us, at least 4 of us, in Glasgow.
Yes.
You know, in the last gig, so the last time Fish playing, you know, Kaylee Lavender and the Heart of Lothian, you know, that's something special.
Yeah, definitely. Is it a single?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
For those over the border, like Grave says, definitely.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
But in the same way that Internal Exile's a single.
Yes,
very. For those over the border, definitely yes. Not as a first single for record.
So, and I'll totally agree. I don't think it sales wise kind of. I mean, I don't even know how it did.
It got to about number 28 or something. I think 24, something like that, and it was there in and out the chart pretty quick.
So I don't think it's single material.
Great video though.
The video's fantastic.
Yeah, great video.
I lost a bet because I bet with someone that I said Childhood's End would be the next single, and I was wrong, obviously.
Oh wow, yeah.
I think that's the one that Andy, our bass player, who also plays in Jump and was in 12th Night for a bit, he always says this would have been a great single.
Again, I think the EMI rep before it had lyrics, they earmarked that as potential single when the early versions. So there's something in that, definitely.
It's difficult as well though, because there was mileage left in the album. But at the time, perceived wisdom was you put out a single and that drove the album, and it worked. I think it was a track too many off the album.
Well, I think that it was released as the tour began, wasn't it? So
the Christmas date, the end date, the November, the November-December tour, yeah.
So it was probably used in conjunction with that, I think.
Well, I think on the picture disc and maybe on the sleeve, isn't there some snow on it as well? On the image of the guy playing the drummer with the snare.
I think so, yeah.
Which would tie in with Christmas very tenuously. Surprised it hasn't got jingle bells in it, you know. The sleigh bells going.
Don't give them any ideas.
Chelsea Monday, wasn't it? Was the B-side, was it?
Yeah,
Live, yeah.
live one.
And so that's the end of side one, obviously with a coda on the end. And into side two with Waterhole.
Espresso Bongo.
I love side 2.
Side 2 is fantastic.
Uh,
All fantastic.
and I think I love it more than side 1, but probably because we're talking side 1s and side 2s, and I probably overplayed side 1. Yeah. I mean, I must have heard it twice a day for years at least when it was a current album, because we were playing it in the shop all the time. And then when we got the CD, well, that was it.
Yeah, I mean, side 2 it's where I sort of fell in love with the album. The singles were great, but for me, side 2 was the bit, all the stuff that the Lords of the Backstage stuff. I know I'm shooting through the running order, but everything that's in there, it just builds and builds and builds up to that Childhood End and White Feather. And it just takes, I mean, I remember my mum and dad had split up, and I was living with my grandparents. And my grandfather was an engineer, and he built his own valve-driven stereo system into the alcove, and he had I think they were about 3 feet tall by 2 feet wide speakers with like bass bins and all this kind of stuff in the front room. And I had Who's Last,
Nice.
a Springsteen album, something else, and this. And this never left the turntable for about 2 months. It just went on, flipped it. It was just obsessive. And that second side became my escape. Everything as a teenager who'd broken up with his girlfriend over the summer because I went away from boarding school, and she's like, I'm not waiting for you. So I broke up. So I had the broken heart thing. My parents were fucked in. They'd split up and all this kind of stuff. And I was back in Glasgow, having lived away for so long. So exactly that kind of coming back to somewhere where you thought you belonged, but it's all changed.
Yeah.
This was my anthem. It was brilliant.
With speakers like that, Grae, I bet the whole street and then about 2 miles around.
Yeah.
Could you Waterhole?
I did get a couple of complaints.
The beginning of that is amazing. I love the
The
boom.
intensity.
Oh, it's superb.
Yeah.
Mr. Mosley going hammer and tongs.
Yeah,
So powerful.
I love watching the band trying to play it.
Is it an unusual rhythm?
It's not once you get into the pattern. I mean, it's
but the
not a
intro-
usual rhythm. I think one of the things actually that's quite interesting is they are prog, but it always sounds a lot more complicated than it is, which is an art.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem we have is trying to remember it all. But the lyrics to it are just fantastic.
Yeah.
Was it Paradise Lost or Paradise Found? And you'd found true love, or so you believed, and the white boys tattooed your hearts upon their sleeves. And the way it goes into the chorus, presumably, I suppose it's the chorus. So when you think it's time to go, it's just the way it just flows into that, and it just takes off again.
It was a revelation for me, I must admit, when I heard that. That was just so powerful and so just great. And that whole second side is superb.
Yeah. It starts with a great deal of energy, doesn't it? And it just carries through as well. Lords of the Backstage is another great track. Another chance for Fish to be verbose as ever.
Yeah.
But actually, when I first saw Marillion, which was in '91, on the Holidays in Eden tour, the bit of Misplaced that they played was the section from from side 2, Lords of the Backstage into Blind Curve. And that, to me, I was really surprised to see them play that at my first gig. I thought yes, they'd play like the Kaylee Lambda Heart of Loathing that like they had on Season's End, but I did not expect that section of Misplaced.
So I'm sure somebody will correct me, but just talking about it being complex, I was counting it in my head, and I'm like, it sounds like 4/4 to me, which is quite simple, but it's the syncopation of it's the dots and the note, it's the dotted notes and the rests and stuff in between all the bits. But everything, and I've just checked online, and everything I can see that's got the music says 4/4.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, Graham. It sounds more complicated perhaps than it is.
Yeah, and if you look at even the keyboard part, it's quite there's breaks in it and there's stuff, and the drums are all syncopated, so he's playing triplets with breaks and all this kind of stuff. So
yeah,
you feel this really complex stuff, but if you count it, it just goes 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4, 1, which is weird.
Yeah.
Certainly, I've been
listening to the surround mix again today, which I won't go into detail about. I did it the first time, but
It's your favourite way of playing it.
it is.
Yes.
But there's lines in the. It's a really what's the word? Conservative Stephen Wilson surround mix is Misplaced. There's very little that sort of hits you that you've not heard before, but occasionally you just get these sort of keyboard licks or things, particularly when Rothers is going off on a solo, that you can suddenly hear that you can't hear in the stereo mix. And Lords of the Backstage is another one where you can, because there's quite a lot going on in the intro, which is probably why I'm under the impression that it's in a strange time signature. But when you can hear all that instrumentation separated out, it's much, much clearer.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think. I mean, I've not had the pleasure of listening to your favourite way of listening to this, but it's.
Craig doesn't do it either, Mark. So you're all right to just don't only be stereo. You know,
Yeah, I've only got 2 ears.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that one before, have you, John?
No, never.
It's half a brain.
But I mean, I mean, again, the lyrics are just. I mean, going back to the bit before when he's going on about the Wide Boys, there was a bit where a lot of the Marillion fans, especially the ones who've been around for a long time. I've got to say, guys, we were all geeky, and we hated, these guys that were going around and seemingly finding it a lot easier to get girlfriends than we were, and all that sort of stuff. So the Wide Boys, and then you're going on about I just wanted you to be the first one, and all this sort of stuff. It just really resonated.
Yeah. And from there we go into Blind Curve, which just like nearly 10 minutes of amazing.
For me, the Milo section in Blind Curve was the bit where that was like where I saw the light. That was the first piece of music, the way that the guitar and the singing and the lyrics, first piece of music that ever brought me to tears, and that was like a new experience. Yeah, amazing. So that for me is the actual pinnacle of the album, and probably one of my favorite pieces of music of it ever. Just unbelievably good.
I think coming back to the timing and stuff, I think the way he sings the lyrics, and this is really, really clever. So if you read it, it doesn't. So just reading through the lyrics, or remember Toronto when Milo went down and stuff, it doesn't in your head. It doesn't sound anything. But when he puts it over the music and the way he sings it and the timing he uses and the phrasing, it just makes it emotional. It makes it.
Well, you can tell it affected him.
Yeah.
That's the magic of Marillion, isn't it? That's just something that they do that I just don't think anyone else does. It's just something that they managed to do. It's just their magic.
I think it's the least transparent of his lyrics, though, isn't it? Because we all know about John Milet and what happened, and we did at the time. It was widely publicised that Milo is about John Milet.
Yeah, there's no ambiguity there, is there?
No, not at all.
I mean, I wouldn't I go back to the bit. I've got the words in front of me now, and apparently it's called "Vocal Under a Bloodlight." When he's doing the "Last Night You Said I Was Cold, Untouchable,"
Yeah,
and I just thought that was about me. That
I just we all did.
Yeah, and again, it's just the
Speak for yourselves, fellas.
And that's what I was trying to
say. The Bunny Men were bringing all the girls in, weren't they?
Exactly.
That's what I was saying about it being my anthem for the summer, because I felt that kind of, you could feel the lonely angst in the lyrics, and it meant you felt as if he'd written it for you.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird now admitting it, but
Well, no, that's what you're looking for. I mean,
but you're not aware of it at the time, though. You're not aware of why you like it at the time, I think. I think as a teenager, I don't think I was aware of the fact that I resonated with the lyric and the fact that somebody older than me and famous was willing to bare themselves and say this kind of stuff. I didn't kind of process it that way. I just knew that there was a reason I liked it, and I wasn't sure what it was.
They're almost sort of lyrics that you needed to have lived a lifetime to sort of listen to resonate with.
Yeah, and we've already talked in a recent podcast, John, haven't we, about the emotional impact of lyrics and what happens when you listen to Marillion as a grown man. So
look, I was tired. I'd had a lot to drink.
You and me both. Don't worry about it.
I'm not crying in my own house.
All right, okay.
All right. I'll do it in Holland. I'm not doing it here.
Oh.
No, it's yeah. I don't know. It just feels like there's more lyrics on this album than the previous two.
I mean, they probably aren't, but it feels like that. You know, if you look at the sheer volume of them in the sleeve.
I think it tells a bigger story.
Yeah.
The individual parts of script in Fugazi, even the long songs, they were like quite compact stories. There was one reason behind them. There was one story that he was telling, whether it was an ex-girlfriend or whether it was a family member that had lost in Northern Ireland or whatever it was. Whereas this, it's all we say it's more transparent, but it's actually quite multifaceted, and there's a lot to it, and it's not as direct. It's really weird because he wasn't direct before. He was really verbose and florid, but the songs were direct. This is a prog album with a story we've woven through it, and it's just so much more complex that you feel that. I mean, we've all said, I cannot believe it's only 40 odd minutes long. It should be an hour in my head.
Yeah.
But he still gets the story across and the emotion and everything.
And you know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to Childhood's End. The single that should have been, Richard.
Single that should have
Absolutely. Yeah. Great.
Can I just before we get there? Can I just say something about? There's a bit in the track that apparently is called Threshold.
Yes.
War
Widow section.
Yeah. Wow. And performing that.
Powerful.
Oh, I this is going to sound a bit wanky. Sorry.
Does it exhaust you when you're performing that?
No, but I listen to it and think, Christ, I sound good. It's only because I'm singing somebody else's words in a fake. But there is a line in it that I really don't like, and I think it's a bit unnecessary when he says, "Drenched in napalm, this is no Vietnam."
Yeah.
To me, why just go there for a line? I don't know. I just think it just disturbs maybe the equilibrium or whatever the word is a bit. But anyway, that whole piece is just something to perform. I mean, it's
really interesting. I think at the time that was one of the bits that hit me the hardest, because I grew up in Germany with my dad in the army. So convoys, curb crawling, West German autobahns and stuff. I'd seen it. I'd grown. My dad was part of that and all that kind of stuff. So again, it gives it that personal spin. I hadn't twigged about the Vietnam point, but it's really quite stark compared to the rest, because the rest of it is like contemporary and what was going on, whereas the Vietnam is like put in for dramatic effect. Dramatic effect. Yeah.
I think it's a bit of a cheap dramatic effect. I mean, the bit well,
it sets up the next line, doesn't it? I can't take any more.
Well, which is fair.
Yeah, okay.
But I mean, my memories of the 80s in West London, it wasn't necessarily a particularly nice place to be. And the bit where he's going on, trying to pick up a war, they're going to even the score. And that bit always really resonated with me, because everybody was fighting everybody else.
It's pertinent today as well, isn't it?
Well, yeah, there is.
Oh, yeah, even more so.
Yeah,
Scary.
Yeah. And even things like soup ladles put on the lips of the poor, like, particularly for these days. I'm sorry, I've
no
back a bit there.
It's fine, Mike. It's all valid stuff. Let's go on to the positive Childhood's End. Or is it positive? I don't know.
It sort of it had what did I think Fraser when he did the words in John Collins' book, where he said it was the first sort of pieces of sunlight, or the first shafts of sunlight coming like across the land or something. You just feel that maybe things are a little bit more optimistic and just getting better.
That's really
which I think is the feeling I get from it.
Yeah, me too. It's a sort of lifting of the mood and heading towards the positive upswing at the end of the album, I think, for me.
Yeah.
But it is also, it's almost as if he doesn't believe it himself. If you read the way the lyrics and the questioning part of the lyrics, it's almost as if he's seeing the light, but he's not sure if it's actually there. Do you know what I mean? Am I actually getting out of this? Am I making the progress?
Yeah.
It's almost a question rather than a statement, isn't it?
And it is, isn't it? Childhood's End. The title has a question mark, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I quite like the bit where he says, where he's talking about how you surprised more than surprised to find the answers to the questions were always in your own eyes.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's saying, you got to sort yourself out, and you really do know, and if there's stuff that you're not happy with, then you've got to realise, and especially the bit because of my love life at the time, you realise. I always thought he said, "Do you realise you could have gone back to her?" Where he actually says, "Do you realise you give it on back to her?" But in my mind, you could have gone back to her, but that would only be retracing all the problems that you ever knew. So untrue. And that felt like a message to a 20, whatever I was at 20-year-old me, 21-year-old me.
Yeah.
And it is quite revelationary when you're told that sort of the answer's rose in your own eyes. You don't need to depend on someone else to give you an answer.
Yeah.
So being told, and again, it's me as a teenager with this famous person bearing their soul and saying things and saying, you can do it on your own. You don't have to rely on someone else. So there's all these things that you don't realize at the time, but you probably took them as really positive messaging.
Yeah, I think
as a nerd, like.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, and following that, you got the I can do anything.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing misplaced with direction is just a great line.
Yeah.
And then I found direction.
One of his best.
Yeah.
And very, very straightforward. No echoing at his window and his womb and all that stuff.
And next week on Marillion's philosophy, according to Derek Dick, we it's like a philosophy lesson, isn't it? Like once you start reading it and looking at it, it's just fucking amazing, really, isn't it?
Actually, one of the revelations, I don't know if I should say this, but I was singing the wrong words for years until I had to learn it properly.
Oh, no, not another Peter Kay moment. You mean?
Oh, it is, mate, yeah.
Oh.
There's something about a black moon or something, and I always thought it was something moon. But anyway, somewhere else in the song, can't remember where it is.
I very rarely read the lyrics because you're just so used to the record now, and you've got your own interpretation of what they are, and that's it. And I don't think I've actually come back to them and read them in this sort of way for a long time, in the way we're talking about them now. It's so ingrained, this album. Both acts have played it. Fish a lot more than Marillion, to be fair, but both acts have played it across the years. The gigs at the time were
just off the scale, weren't they?
Amazing, yeah. To see them, I was lucky enough to go to the Misplaced Marquee gig, so I didn't have public transport in those days. I didn't drive in those days, so I was relying on public transport, and I got a ticket through the web to go to the Misplaced Marquee gig, which was the one where, when Fish was on doing Lavender on Top of the Pops, he'd lost his voice. The gig was at the same time, so we were all singing all the words in the marquee. It was only about a 10-song set list, but he was basically leading the choir. It was an amazing night. I'd never been to the marquee. It's the one and only time I went to the original marquee, because living in York, it wasn't that handy. And
where's your commitment?
I know. Ridiculous, isn't it? But it was an amazing night to see them. They were just, Misplaced was flying. They were high as a kite, and the audience were just mad for anything they were doing.
Plus, great time as well.
Got a free T-shirt as well.
I think those times and the Marbles times for me are the two sort of high points of being part of the fan experience.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see the similarities there, definitely.
Can I just go back and just call out how much I love the segue between childhood,
Yeah,
just superb, that drumming and bass, and there's no lyrics or anything, but it's just a great piece of music, I think, which really shows off how good they were as musicians.
Yeah. Another almost seamless segue, isn't it? Really,
Travis is a phenomenal bass player.
He is,
and I don't think he gets anywhere near the credit.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone, lots of people get the Rothery bit, but he is a phenomenal bass player. I mean, we did a gig with Keno, and it was a lesson just to sit there and watch him.
John, was it the Afraid of Sunlight episode where we were talking about how much of an unsung hero he is and the complex?
I think so. Yeah,
actually, pay attention to his bass work.
Pete is probably
unbelievable.
I mean, I aren't saying this because we're trying to get him on the podcast, but he's probably the best musician in the band because he can play anything almost, can't he? You know, he can turn his hand to almost any instrument.
I remember seeing a video of him playing a piano. Where was that? Was that in Racket? He did a video, something of they were working on something. He played and I was like, is there anything he can't do?
Yeah. No, he's brilliant. And please come on the podcast, Pete. We're asking.
He did promise. He did promise you, John.
He did promise, and I'm sure he will. He's a bit busy with the weekends at the minute, but yeah.
Yeah, you know, he's I think one of the things, if you go back and listen to bootlegs, you know, a lot of love for Diz, but it was such a seismic improvement when Pete joined, I think. And it probably exposed Mick more than anything.
Yeah.
And we all know how that ended.
Yeah.
But just almost from the off, you know, when you compare what Diz was playing on majority of the songs that ended up on script to what Pete played, and he just brought them to life. But anyway, I'm not really normally a big fan of bass players. They normally are a pain in the arse in bands. But
yeah. Well, hi to the bass player in Marquee Square Heroes. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Andy's phenomenal. It's probably Andy that is one of the reasons why I've listened to it a lot more, because he calls him Pete Trousers and talks about it.
He is Pete Trousers, yeah. Trousers, yeah. Yeah, it's on the flight case. It is Pete Trousers.
I do think, going back to the song White Feather, I do think for me it's the link back to Fugazi, because it's the repeated chant. It's not a chant, it's not the same, but you know what I mean, it's almost the same ending to the end of the Fugazi album, because it's got that repeated lyric that everybody can join in, and it's triumphant.
It is. I don't think I said this on the first episode, but I'm going to put the target on my back now. I don't think it's the strongest ending to an album.
I can see why you say that.
It's better than it on The Lamb, but I don't think it's the strongest ending. It kind of tails off, whereas for me, the album should have a grand ending and finish.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think I can see that.
I do think there's a little bit that for me, where both this and Brave being concept albums, where they try to end on high note, on a positive note.
Yeah.
And I think Brave really suffers for that. Personally, I can't stand the last track, but we're not talking about it.
Oh, I love Made Again.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Depends what groove you get on the record.
Sorry?
There is that.
It depends what groove you get on the record. You're all right.
Yeah, but the odds are you're going to get that. I think I've only had it twice.
I've only ever had it once, for God's sake.
Twice?
Yeah, once I've ever had it. I'm like, what?
But man, when you get that ending, it's amazing. Anyway, we're not talking about Brave today.
No, sorry.
Do you think there's a certain irony in the fact that White Feather's obviously a song about not really having a sort of country and not worrying about your country?
Yeah.
And then obviously the direction that Fish then went into, and sort of nationalism, etc.
Really good point. Yeah.
Well, I always thought White Feather as a kind of peace song, really.
It is.
Yeah, I'm not saying. I don't think it's don't be proud in your country. I think it's don't get involved in a fight because of your country, which is a very, very different type of thing.
Yeah.
But of all the people on here, you would say that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would.
But yeah, amazing record, isn't it? Do we talk about the sleeve?
Go on then. Mark Wilkinson's epic artwork.
Is that it?
Well, it's the sort of we're going to say the iconography of it, the poppy, the magpie, the rainbow, all the stuff that's in it. And what I love about it is it didn't die with this album. So if you look at everything went through, Early Stages has got some stuff on it, hasn't it? Early Stages did some of that on it, and then you've got the Farewell to Childhood, the Return to Childhood artwork from Fish's tours and what have you. You've got all this, and it just continued. It had a life all the way of its own, which a lot of Mark's artwork does. It's stunning. Yeah.
Guest is still there on the back, jumping out the window. It's great. I'm not sure about never really looked at it until today. Just where the text is positioned.
Is it not just because it's the only white bit of the album in the cloud?
Maybe.
I do love the way, and it continues the imagery from the early stuff. So, like you say, you've got the jester still on there climbing out the window. So the childhood end, he's like growing up. You've got the chameleon in the cage.
You have,
Yeah, you've got all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so that I'm not sure I like the jigsaw holes on the floor for the titles to be in. I don't know if there maybe was something should have been in there, because was it not one of the other pieces of art? Is it Mark said that one of the covers he had, there's a black bit and it was meant to have something in it and he didn't have time to finish it. Was it this or was it the previous one? I think it was this.
But this, he certainly finished for Gary.
Yeah, no, he did. Yeah, Clutching at Straws was the additional characters that were meant to be on it, and they did.
Oh yeah.
This was the black hole should not have been a black hole, but they used it for the song titles.
Right. I mean, it's great. It's great for t-shirts, wasn't it? You know. Yeah. And the drummer boy was a great central figure.
I don't know if you've seen any of our marketing stuff where we've replicated the cover.
I have actually. Yeah, the photo stuff. Really good.
Yeah, very good.
Driven by the fact that Lucy wasn't very happy about tribute bands using their material.
He's gone there. Lucy's gone there.
And I'd like to point out we're the only ones that don't anymore. But yeah, we had great fun recreating a lot of these things.
Yeah.
Wait till you see the new T-shirt. But yeah.
So you're touring the full album this year, aren't you?
Yeah, we're playing it for the first time on the actual anniversary of the release date.
All right.
And I'd like to say that was the plan all along, but we didn't actually have it ready for the beginning part of the calendar year because we ended up gigging so much last year. But yeah, we're doing the whole album.
The border again?
Not at the moment. We're going out to the Netherlands instead.
You've got a gig over the Leicester weekend as well, haven't you?
We have, yes.
Sunday afternoon, isn't it?
Yeah, Sunday afternoon.
Sunday afternoon, yeah. Which venue you play, Mark? Do you know?
Oh, blimey! Now you're asking me the difficult questions.
Well, yes.
I don't know, but I will find out. Bear with me.
Right.
While you're looking, I do wonder if you'll be able to play more and more and get bigger venues if you're doing the earlier Fish Marillion stuff. Now that Fish is not playing,
it's had a huge impact. I don't know. I'm guessing none of you went to Aylesbury. I don't know if any of you saw the pictures, but Aylesbury, the theatre, we're playing at the same venue.
You sent me the pictures, yeah.
Yeah. And we had so many people taking photos, and the ticket sales have been phenomenal. Just because it was,
you had some banners, didn't you?
We had the pull-up banner.
That's fantastic marketing.
Yeah, that's the way you do it. That's fair play. That's really, really good.
Take advantage of it.
Take advantage of it, and from you, if you got for those of us that were on that farewell tour, and you listen to the people maligning the fact they weren't going to hear that material anymore, if they have an opportunity, they'll take it.
No, totally. I mean, the gigs that we've done this year, I would say probably. I mean, we had some amazing nights last year, and we had decent turnouts, but they're like 70% up already.
Yeah.
And it definitely has reignited some interest in what's going on. And I guess there's also a bit that people are becoming more aware that we're out there, and the other stuff that goes with it. But it was the venue that suggested it, and we're sending one to every venue now.
Brilliant. And while you're talking about gigs, then Mark, you've got some Credo gigs this year as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got some Credo gigs. We're playing at the Winter's End Festival in some point in April, which I'm really looking forward to. We have got the new album. It has been finished. It sounds amazing.
What's that called?
We the Disconnected.
Yeah.
And it just basically, it's our fifth album, but it sort of, we found it difficult with real life in the way and COVID and our keyboard player joining Fish's band and then being criticised. Criticised whilst he was let go and all sorts of things. But yeah, so we've got that coming out. We've got some dates towards the end of the year as well. The album's probably going to come out in the autumn now. It's all ready to go. The artwork is phenomenal. The guy who does Frost and Black Star Riders is doing the artwork for us. And the artwork is just off the scale.
I'm trying to think who that is.
No. Paul, no, vitamin P.
Oh yes, yeah. Paul
Very
Tippett.
distinctive.
Paul Tippett, is it?
Yeah, that's it, Paul Tippett. Yeah.
Yeah.
It turns out he used to sit next to our drummer at primary school.
Oh right. Wow.
Small world.
Yeah,
it is. Well, there's your plug. I mean, thanks for talking about Marillion, but there's your plug for the rest of this year. But yeah, I mean, Marquee Square Heroes, please, highly recommended. As our Credo, I've got a couple of Credo albums in my collection, but if you're in Leicester and you've not got tickets for the other stuff, then is it 4:30 you're on Sunday?
I believe so. Yeah.
A nice lead up to the final night of the Marillion weekend. You'll have had your Sunday lunch by then, so go and see a gig.
I've had mine definitely. But yeah, or come and see us. Maybe I'll play all over the country as well. I'm just trying to get the tour dates up. I've forgotten how the internet works.
So Grae, you look.
Tour dates.
I was going to say, Grae, you look quite interested in your deluxe vinyl.
Oh, not time for that.
No, it's just interesting. So obviously it's the studio.
It's the facsimile of the tapes, yeah.
Yeah, and on side 2 it says Espresso Bongo, Lords of the Backstage, vocal under
a Bloodlight.
Light. Passing Strangers, Milo, Wasted, Childhood End,
Spring Walk, yeah.
Yeah.
That's really difficult, the timing on that, to get that right.
Yeah.
Because he's muttering. Yeah, he mutters, and there's no rhyme or reason to there's no rhythm basically to what he's muttering, which makes it a little bit difficult.
Anyway, I love the way this has been done because it actually says please return to the library on the tape, on the tape covers and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's. I mean, when we did the first episode, the vinyl was sold out, but it's actually been reissued now. It's still available. Is that box
in limited numbers, wasn't it? So she said
it's still available. Look today.
Yeah, and the Blu-ray is still available as well. The deluxe CD and Blu-ray is still available.
Have you got yours to hand, Craig?
I've got mine here.
I've got mine as well, but it was going to get Craig. Do you want to just read out what's on the box, Craig?
Okay. Well, you've got 4 CDs and a Blu-ray. Disc 1 is the 2017 remaster. Disc 2 is Live in Utrecht 1985 Part 1, which is Emerald Lies, intro, script, Incubus, Chelsea Monday and The Web. Disc 3 is the gig continued with a full performance of Misplaced. And then for the encores, there's Fugazi, Garden Party and Market Square Heroes. Disc 4 is it's a shorter, well, it's not shorter really because it's got your demos on. So you got your B-sides with Lady Nina, Freaks, Kaylee's Alternative Mix, Lavender Blue, Heart of Lothian Extended Mix, and Lady Nina, which is Stephen Wilson's stereo remix, which I think is actually the extended version, if I'm not mistaken. Then you've got the Misplaced Childhood demos of the album all the way through, so that's tracks 7 through to 18.
Slightly different sequence though on that.
Yeah, you're basically Sulaso, Kimono, Kaylee, Lavender, Bittersweet with Brief Encounter and Lost Weekend, Lord of the Backstage, then Blue Angel, Misplaced Rendezvous, Heart of Lothian with the Wide Boy and Curtain Call, Waterhole Espresso Bongo, Passing Strangers, Milo, Perimeter Walk and Threshold, Childhood's End and White Feather. So yes, it's a different track listing in order. And then the pièce de résistance is the Blu-ray, which has got your 5.1 and your stereo remix. It also has the original Misplaced mix on it as well. You've got the videos for the promo videos for the singles, and also you have the absolutely fantastic documentary, which is the guys sitting together at Racket with Chris Kimsey chewing the fat, and it's just great to see the guys together. I mean, it's funny because if you think that was actually recorded now 8 years ago, back in early 2017. So it's
I love that photograph.
The one with Chris Kimsey.
With they're all together.
Yeah, with Chris Kinsey.
Yeah.
And it's funny because at this plan, in part of the conversation, you know, Fish does talk there about his retirement and that he was planning to retire when he was 60, not now at 65.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and this was one of the ones that. So I bought both because I bought one from Racket and one from Fish Music, because you got some signatures on one and one signature on the other before you had to pay for this.
Have you got you paid the tenner for the other one?
No, that was before he charged for signatures. So he did that one for free. I refused to pay for a signature.
Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't have to if you went to one of the pop-ups, did you, this time?
Oh, exactly. I know.
Changed his mind, but we've covered that. Misplaced Childhood Tour, 1985-86.
Stunning.
Where did you go?
Edinburgh Playhouse, January 21st, 22nd?
21st.
Yeah. And it was basically the Utrecht set.
Yeah.
You know? And my first live experience of Marillion. Mind-blowing.
Me too. NEC Arena, 19th of December was my first and only gig on that tour, to be fair. But an eye-opening experience. And we had the joy of Beltane Fire as the support act.
You did, yeah, because I was at that gig too,
really. So that ticked all the boxes for me, except the fact I thought they were rubbish, but that's another matter.
There was a flexi disc in the programme, wasn't there?
That's right, yeah.
Beltane Fire flexi
programme. Yes, it's easy for you to say.
Yeah. Mark, you were at Cardiff, weren't you?
Yeah, St. David's Hall, yeah.
When was that?
Oh, blimey. I haven't got anything to hand at the moment. I'm trying to...
You're here, mate, and I appreciate it. I know what you like.
Yeah. Let's have a think.
Cardiff was on the 12th of January.
There you go. God, was that early in the year? I thought it was March.
Well, there was a few dates that were blown out. I told this on the first, so I apologise for repeating myself. Sheffield City Hall was due to be at the end of January, and Jadis was supporting on that leg of the tour. Jadis played their set, and then Fish came out and said, "I'm really sorry, I've lost my voice. The gig's off." So they rearranged the gig for, I think it was March. We all came back again and saw the gig. So we saw Jadis twice, but yeah.
Their new album's great, by the way. New Jadis album, yeah. And the studio and the live album.
I've heard great reports, and it's nice to see Widge back playing again as well.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
There was a great picture of him and Pete Nichols.
Yeah, they were at Bilston, weren't they? Yeah.
Oh, right. Famous Sticky Floors at Bilston.
Yes.
I love that venue.
No, it's a great venue.
It's such a great place.
Should come with a health warning, though, shouldn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Something when you go there, that's for sure.
So I think
great. Sorry,
Mark, that's the venue that you think is in a house because of where we walk in.
I know it's a bit like that, isn't it? The little bar and the That's in the house, and you go out the back garden for your gig.
Yeah.
It's weird because the Misplaced gig was kind of one of the last gigs I went to when I was still at school. Because I went to boarding school in central Scotland, and Edinburgh was the only place we could get to for gigs, really, which is why I didn't get to travel around and what have you. But after that, the next time I saw them, I was in Hammersmith, living in a flat on my own, working for the RAF as a civil servant.
Yeah.
Which was bizarre, going from being a child to being an adult, and what the change in attitude and what, because I had to be really well behaved when I was seeing Misplaced Childhood and going back to school. But it was a life-changing experience. It really was. It was the first time I'd seen kind of a stage production with a band, rather than just a band performing live, but have something that was, because of the storytelling of the album and what have you, and Fish with the way he delivered was just, I wanted to be a singer after that.
Oh, you don't want to do that, mate.
You
have to hang around with musicians.
Yeah, well, at least you just pack your microphone up and fuck off. You don't have to do the drum kit.
Yeah, but I've got the.
He's one of those. You, Grae?
Yeah, go inside. Go inside. I'm off to sign the merch. It's all right. I'll see you later.
Leave the poor old drummer to put his kit away.
It's a singers' union. I apologise for this, listeners, but
I've actually
go
found
back
out
to something that Mark said about losing our band a little bit. I did feel at the NEC gig, because they were so far apart. The band was stood so far apart, because it's a massive stage. I distinctly remember feeling that they they'd sort of lost contact with each other a little bit.
Did they do Wembley on any Misplaced dates? I mean, I can remember certainly seeing them with Jadis at the Odeon, but I can't remember whether they played.
They did the Brighton Centre, they did the SECC,
Right,
and then they did the NEC.
right, okay. So I mean, I'd have only seen Matt Hammersmith then on that tour.
Yeah,
I guess that was the beginning of the getting bigger and bigger, and because I can only remember like gigs places the size of St David's Hall. I didn't realize they'd actually done the NEC at the end, or towards the end of the Misplaced Childhood tour.
well, it was before you saw the NEC was pre-Christmas. It was 19th of December. So yeah,
And Wembley Arena was the clutching tour. They did 3 dates, didn't they?
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
I was at one of those. Yeah,
I
but
can
yeah,
remember-
it was a really exciting time.
they were great around. I think they were. I mean, when we do the gigs, I mean, there is a bit where I say, you got to remember at one point they were probably the biggest band in the country.
Which is funny considering that, and this is where Fish gets a little bit, and he has been quite bitter for the last 40 years, where they missed out on, where they missed out on a slot on Live Aid, whereas at that time in the summer of '85, they were possibly one of the biggest bands in the country with
Definitely.
a number one album and some hit singles, and they weren't invited on even to do one.
But it was only released 3 weeks beforehand, though, wasn't it? It was only released 3 weeks before Live Aid. Live Aid was July the 5th, so the album was released June. So although they had that huge album, it was too late.
Yeah.
Marillion not appearing was one of 2 big disappointments for me for Live Aid. The other one was my long-term girlfriend packed me in on the very day of Live Aid. So
Really? Oh,
yeah.
The other guys have already heard this, but my biggest disappointment was Big Country not appearing on Live Aid, but that's another story.
Yeah.
And it's all yeah. That's for another time.
You're right. Are you working for Big Country?
No.
Which one? Which one?
With the proper one.
Mr. Watts.
No, God. So
Go on. Start now.
That's almost as bad as me.
He's not crying again, is he, John?
No, he's not.
I'm not going to talk about that.
So
I think it's
which one is the proper one then?
the one when it actually had members of the band other than Bruce Watson in it.
Oh right, yeah.
Because that's not Big Country anymore. Anyway, that's a different story. That's not what I'm talking about. What I was going to say was, I was talking to my son over the Marillion weekend at PZ, and like I say, he never listened until All One Tonight, and he's gone back and he loves all the early stuff, but he's never experienced them being big. And he was talking to his girlfriend. He was saying, "Oh yeah," but he says it's nice having a band that no one else knows about. Having like a small group of fans that can get together and have a love in. I went, you do realise they were the biggest fucking band in Britain for a good period. And he's like, what? I mean, they were huge. I says, between 85 and 91, everybody knew who Marillion was. Everybody knew who they were. Everybody knew the singles. And he's like, sorry, what? I went, yeah, they were massive. And then they fell off a cliff.
Yes. Really weirdly, at work yesterday, we had an IT guy in. Somebody was asking how my holiday had been when I went to Holland. I was telling him about that. And we had an IT guy in working away. And then at one point, about 3:30 in the afternoon, he said to me, "Did you say you like Marillion?" I said, yeah. He said, "Wow, I love those first 4 albums." I said, "You do know they're still going, don't you?" He said, "Really?" I said, "I went to see Fish's farewell gigs beginning of the month." He said, "Oh, he made it then. I thought he'd be dead by now."
So, I think I told you already, John. So I got back from PZ and we had a work meeting, and they try and do icebreakers every meeting to get people talking. And the icebreaker last week was, what's made you smile recently? And I was like, being in a room with 3,000 people listening to the same band, everybody just not giving a shit. Everything gets left at the door. It's all about the music. And somebody went, "What band?" I went, "Marillion," thinking that the room would just be dead. And somebody went, "Oh, I loved those first few albums. Are they still going? I really." And somebody else went, "My first ever gig was Marillion." I went, "Where was it?" It was outside at Milton Keynes Bowl. I've stopped talking to him now. But yeah, it's amazing how many people do remember them and do talk about them, but they just aren't aware they're still going. And I don't know why not, because, well, I do know why not.
Yeah.
We keep a secret, don't we? We're all selfish fuckers.
Well, you know, we've got to be able to get in that tent. You know, if there's
Oh,
too many people, we'll never get in the
shellfish
tent.
suckers.
Come on, hands up! How many of you were glad when it all came back to where it was? I was. I
What do you
didn't
mean
get
when-
in. Well, they start to get so big that you're in bloody arenas, and they just didn't feel the same anymore.
And
No,
I think,
Yeah, but
I would have loved to have heard the album that followed Clutching at Straws.
yes,
Yeah.
I think it would have been amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
some of those demos that came out on the '97 remaster of Clutching were really good.
Yeah.
I struggle when they say that they didn't think that they had an album in there with those demos.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I don't
No,
understand.
because especially when both parties, basically their next albums were those demos.
Yeah.
Um,
But I think Mark's got a point, as in Marky Owens, is that it was really interesting. It went from being all right. You had the auditoriums and what have you, not the arenas and what have you. They got slightly bigger, but you felt you lost. It wasn't the fans of the band; it was the fans of the singles.
yeah,
It was the people that didn't know. They didn't know Geezer Bun. They didn't know the web. They didn't. I'm not even going to say the G word, but all that kind of stuff. They didn't understand everything that went on. They were just there because they knew the single. Like Mark's comment about like all the old ladies in the front row of St David's Hall and all that kind of shit. So you did feel as if you were losing it. And I must admit, when I got back into seeing them live, it was great to have that selfish sense of ownership again.
I feel like that's only coming, I don't know, post EMI.
Yeah.
Owens said is where the sort of my feeling about the audience has changed, in that we know a lot of people. You see people at gigs. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like that on the Brave tour. I went with my missus to see the Brave tour, and I didn't see anybody I knew.
There's no concept of family then, was there? Like there is
I
now.
don't think so, but I'm sure that if you look at maybe the members, the people who were running the web, maybe they felt that. Maybe Lucy was part of that in her friend group, but it wasn't as widespread as it appears to be now.
Yeah,
I think with us though, it really started with Haddington. I mean, it did with me and John, but Haddington, the fish, the company weekends, that was the start of a community in the fish in the fish fan club area, because there's a lot of people that we knew through that.
And I think what's changed though is a lot of the fans now have more money, and get to more. I mean, I could probably, I would have only been able to do the gigs in Hammersmith back then, whereas you get a lot of people who will go, they'll fly out to, and some of you guys did it on the fish tour, go out or you just come back from PZ and things like that, and I think that has helped the feeling of family in both sort of tribes. And I also think it was a little bit raw still up to probably Brave for a lot of people. You went one route or the other.
I don't know, because I didn't. I followed.
No, but I think a lot of people did.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, a lot.
Of people did.
Very tribal.
Yeah.
And I think what happened then was whichever route you took. I mean, I think the thing that, I mean, both bands now are probably, well, Fish is finished, but Marillion now probably as big as they've been since Fish left. I would suggest, but that has only become off the. I think those 3 independent albums, they didn't do them any favors. Interestingly, I quite like them now, but I think at the time they alienated a lot of people.
Well, they didn't have the visibility they expected. Obviously they dropped off EMI, where at least they could get the distribution and get the CDs and the records into shops. You didn't get that with the independents.
No, and again, the whole world, that whole world has changed, hasn't it? So in the past, the tour supported the album, and you made your money on your album sales.
Yeah.
Now it's been turned on its head.
Yeah.
But the thing is with Misplaced though, it gave them a sense of a bigger fan base, even if it dropped out, and a sense of security financially to move forward. And it's because of Misplaced, really, that they're still here.
I was going to say, without it, they wouldn't be.
They were threatened with getting dropped if Misplaced hadn't been what it is. So, you parallel Misplaced to Brave, where Brave was their next attempt that they had to survive EMI through Brave, but it failed, and that's where.
Well, I've got my. I mean, you've heard my decades theory, haven't you? If you listen, so 85, 2004, sorry, 84, 85, 94, 2004, the big concept albums, the big albums that had the flows and the big tracks in it.
Yeah.
For me, they've done a 10-year cycle, and each one of those, so Misplaced, Brave, and Marbles, for me, for the fans, those are the three that they gave them the boost each time. They gave them, it was like, yes, something new, something different. I mean, don't get me wrong. You were talking there, Mark, about people choosing a different path. I think Brave at the time had that kind of impact as well. Some people like
I agree totally. Yeah, it put a lot of people off. I mean, I know people who, when they talk, I mean, people say to me, "When did you?" I don't like the current music that they present, and I can pinpoint exactly where I stopped enjoying it. And it's quite interesting because people ask when we're doing these gigs. When you sort of explain it to them, but a lot of them had gone before then, and a lot of it is a lot of times people say I didn't get Brave.
I didn't.
I've got the amount of times I hear, and I don't know if somebody else has said it somewhere because they must have done, because so many people use the same words. There's a good single album in there fighting to get out. I don't agree with that. I definitely don't agree with that. I think that was their last great work. But each to our own. I mean, things change, don't they? And we all change, and we all.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got to say this, and this will upset some people. The last 2 times I've left before the end.
When was the last time you went?
Probably on the Marbles tour,
right?
And I just stood there and I thought, what on earth is going on? But then, interestingly, the last time before this Farewell Fish tour, I'd seen him. I'd left as well. He was in a foul mood, and he was ripping everybody apart, the band, the audience. But yeah, it's difficult because we've all got our memories, and we all want it to be up there with the memories that we had. And when it's not, it's disappointing, isn't it?
Strangely, it was Marbles that brought me back into the fold, but Misplaced Childhood was what it was. So while I loved the first two, it was Misplaced and the big pieces, the big pieces inside one and side two, that hooked me and made me a fan for life, I think.
Yeah. Well, look, we've talked about it a lot, but without it, we wouldn't be here.
Oh, no, totally.
We'd still be going.
Exactly, yeah.
It was great to be there when our band were in the news and people knew who they were. In a way, I feel a bit, I don't know if sorry is the word, I can feel for Hogarth never having had that. He's the only one of the current lineup that never had that sort of level of fame. But the others had it and didn't enjoy it from the sound of things. But it's an incredible record. It'll always be in my top 10 albums. It's still not my favourite Marillion album, but I can't say Marillion anymore. Still not my favourite Marillion album, but it's an incredible record.
Yeah,
and we talked about it for ages. So thanks for bearing with us.
A bumper episode for 100.
Thanks for bearing with us. We would just like to say thank you, Mark Owens.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mark Colton.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard Broadley.
Thank you. Can I just do a quick shout out to Neil Johnson, who was the chap who introduced me to them back in 1985. I never saw him again. I've no idea if he's even still a fan, but if you're listening, Neil, thank you very much. You changed my life, mate. And
thanks for costing you thousands of pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Neil, if you're listening, get on our Facebook group. We'll put you back in touch with Richard if you're listening.
Absolutely.
And thanks, Grae Tennick.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure as always.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Craig.
Right, thank you very
Thanks
much.
a lot, guys.
And can I thank everybody? No. Can I thank everybody who's stuck with us for the last 100 episodes?
Oh, yes.
It's
been hell.
It is.
I've only just caught up today. Shush.
Have you?
Yeah.
Is this where we announce our split due to musical differences?
Yeah.
Oh dear God, you're not getting shot up as that easy.
No, as Craig says, thanks for listening. We do appreciate it. And if you came to see us at PZ, thank you very much. We got a great photo, and we'll be putting an episode out very shortly about.
I mean, it's the episode before this one, man.
Oh well, you've already heard it then. There you go.
There you go.
All that remains to be said is take care
And stay alive.
Yay.
Hey.
Thanks for listening to Planet Marzipan Podcast. Please like and subscribe from whichever platform you get your podcasts from. You can contact us at planetmarzipanpodcast@gmail.com and check out marillion.com, fishmusic.scot for all the good stuff.